The Carter Center says the former First Lady died peacefully with her family by her side. Tributes are now pouring in, including from political leaders. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer writes, America has lost a passionate humanitarian and champion for people all over the world. And Senator Jon Ossoff from the Carter's home state of Georgia says Rosalynn's lifetime of work and her dedication for public service changed the lives of many. I join all Georgians and Americans in mourning her loss. We're going to take you to Washington now. CBS News' congressional correspondent Nikole Killion joins us on the phone. Nikole, the former First Lady leaves quite a legacy of work behind. How is Washington reacting?
Well, this is obviously very sad news to digest, and so we continue to see an outpouring of reaction and, mourning for the former First Lady. Everyone from current First Lady Jill Biden, who praised Rosalynn Carter's work, for instance, on mental health, women's rights, and other issues, to many in Congress, like Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who praised her work, as well as former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who called particularly her work around mental health transformative. We have also heard, for instance, from Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff, who also noted that she has changed many lives over the years through her work in mental health and in other areas. So obviously everyone is still digesting this news, but many hold Mrs. Carter in high regard, and certainly her husband as well, and are expressing their condolences at this time.
And Nikole, you mentioned that the current First Lady, Jill Biden, made remarks about the former First Lady's passing, but really praising her for her work. I see that the New York Times called Mrs. Carter the most politically active First Lady since Eleanor Roosevelt. In what ways did Rosalynn Carter shape the role of First Lady?
Well, for instance, she was one of the first presidential spouses to set up an office in the East Wing and hire a staff. And, she kind of came to work every day. She often was very engaged, both with respect to foreign and domestic affairs. Also, this is an area where she did utilize her expertise and her passion around the issues of mental health to make a difference. For instance, she served on a presidential commission and was involved in helping to pass legislation around mental health. So she was very active and engaged, and kind of set that example and blazed those trails for future First Ladies to also take on more substantive issues.
And in what ways did Rosalynn Carter then not only reshape the role of First Lady, but also work to reshape, in a time of transition for the country, the role of women in positions of power, in positions of service?
Well, again, I think, taking on more of that policy standpoint and position, I think, was one way in which she helped transform that office. And I think it's also important to remember, even after leaving the White House, of course, former President Jimmy Carter only served one term, and 1 year after leaving the White House, he and his wife founded the Carter Center in Atlanta and really used that as an extension of their work. And that was something that Mrs. Carter was as much engaged in the work there as her husband. In fact, in the statement that the Carter Center put out today, the former president called her an equal partner. And that is something that was also conveyed to me in terms of talking to not only the CEO of the Carter Center earlier this year, but also to others who have worked in that center for years. And again, particularly around the issues of mental health. She created a symposium that was held regularly at the Carter Center. I mean, this was back in the mid-'80s when people really weren't talking about mental health in the way that they talk about it now. Of course, there are now, she established a task force. She was very involved in setting up, for instance, fellowships for mental health journalism, which is a program that still exists today. So all of that not only was work that began even preceding her time in the White House, that she continued in the White House, but also after the White House as well, because it was an issue she was so passionate about.
All right. Nikole Killion, thank you.
You bet.